Welcome to Intuition and Orgasms, a daring new podcast with Jen Hamilton and Greg Riley, where we dive deep into the intertwined worlds of spirituality, relationships, and self-discovery. We're here to shed light on the often untouched topics that everybody needs to wake up to. Expect raw, unfiltered conversations as we tackle subjects like emotional intelligence, trauma healing, conscious relationships, and yes, better orgasms. We combine our unique experiences and skills, Greg with his intuitive insights and therapeutic expertise, and Jen with her background in clinical hypnotherapy, coaching, tantra, and esoteric psychology. Together, we aim to help you upskill your life, understand your true self, and build meaningful connections. Each episode will explore the tools and practices that foster personal growth and transformation. From unpacking childhood imprints and societal conditioning to discussing the impact of spirituality and energy on relationships, we leave no stone unturned. Plus, we'll share our personal stories of overcoming adversity, leaning into our shadows, and finding profound joy and connection on the other side. Join us on this journey to know yourself, communicate better, and ultimately, fuck better.
Good evening, Jen. We're back again. How are we going tonight?
I'm so good. We'll just talk about how hot it's been in Brisbane here. We've had like this heat wave. You guys are still freezing in country Victoria. So it's just all the things at the moment.
Depressing. Very depressing down here. Just, yeah. Change the subject. It's horrible down here.
All right, let's talk about intuition and orgasm. Let's talk about conscious relationships.
Some good shit. I think for us, I think some of the biggest things, people make this stuff too complicated than it really needs to be. There's some still really important steps that most people can take that they don't take first up. And one of the first steps that I think, you and I work on with people is that self-awareness, that how do people view myself, or how do I see myself? Because too many people these days tend to go into a relationship for it to fix them, or to be loved, or to feel that hole inside of them because I have no self-love myself. I'll get somebody else to love me and then blame them for when they don't love me enough because I won't do the work on myself.
In a nutshell, yeah.
So I think if we go down a path tonight about self-awareness, and I think it can really help some. And this is a challenging conversation. This is not for the faint-hearted, because it's about accountability, for your own role in the relationship. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. They kind of just go, well, my husband's a problem, my girlfriend's a problem, my mum's a problem, my dad's a problem, all that kind of stuff. But what's the common denominator in all these problems?
Themselves. Ding, 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 Yahtzee.
And here we go, self-awareness, right? So tell me, when you start working with people, what's the power of self-awareness in that first step?
It's everything, because, the first step is always know thyself. The first step to growth is awareness. It's awareness of self, because if you don't know yourself, you can't step into a conscious relationship. And we're not just talking about romantic relationships and partnerships here. We're talking about any conscious dynamic here, like a friendship. It could be, a rekindling of a friendship that once had fallen apart because no one took responsibility or accountability for their emotions. It could be with a parent. It could be with a child as well. Like, we're talking about all relationships here. And when you truly do the work to know yourself and you discover who you are, why you are wired the way you are, and go about changing things that aren't serving you, that's where the magic is. And it will bang on about this in every single episode. It always comes back to self.
Yeah, and that's the thing where people kind of. I was speaking on a podcast last night with some friends of mine, and I was saying that the big thing that changed for me is when I started to learn about how the mind works, and how that, sort of, because you and I, from that whole psychic part, we kind of understand that there's this intuition side. There's this part, there's part of us that's very spiritual, but there's a part of us that's very much a program. It's very much in the mind, and accessing that part of your subconscious programming, the way that you were brought up, without blame. It's not here to blame your parents that they're shit. It's just they got their own stuff to deal with, and they did the best they could with what they knew at the time as well too. But stepping back from yourself and going, okay, what are my thoughts? Who do I think I am, and how do I speak to myself? That's the first step, is to go through that place of going, well, what are the statements I'm actually living in? And that might be, well, I'm unlovable, I'm unattractive, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'll amount to nothing, I'm worthless, I'm unseen, I'm unheard, I'm dismissed. And as you know, part of, the way that reality works and part of the Hermetic principles is as within, so without. So if you're in a world, and your dialogue is that, what does the external world have to reflect back to you?
And this is the thing, like you mentioned, this is all subconscious. We don't have access to this like we do with our traditional memories in our conscious mind. So I always refer to the conscious and the subconscious mind. Think of it like a diagram with an iceberg. We've got 10% at the top, which is our conscious mind, where we have access to all of our memories. That's where everything that we can access at the drop of a hat as we need to is in the 10% of our mind's capacity. The other 90% is below the surface. That's where all of the pieces of information that you've ever absorbed in your entire lifetime has gone in to store, these deep-seated memories, these conditionings, these beliefs, stuff that you've inherited through your DNA from your parents and grandparents as well. And we can throw in a bit of woo-woo stuff that's come through with past lives and, that cell memory as well, which is probably a different conversation. And so
Yep.
we bring all of this stuff through. From the ages of 0 to 7, we're in what's called the imprinting phase of life. So from 0 to 7, we are born into a theta brainwave. So the theta brainwave is the state of the brain capacity where we're absorbing everything. And you know how we say that kids are like sponges? It's because they are. Everything that's going in is being absorbed and stored and programmed. From the ages of 14 to 17, we're really starting to solidify those beliefs and making up our minds about the world around us. So all of the information that was coming in those imprinting years is what we're actually playing out in our adult life. And it's not until we go back and we start to uncover what those are and the meaning that we've given life from such a young age, from everything that we've taken in and given meaning to, we can start to realize, well, hang on a second, these aren't even, this is not the way I want to behave. This is just what I've been programmed to believe. And when we start to look at, like, we look at relationships, if we look at the way our parents behaved within their relationship and what we modeled from them as to what marriage is or what separation is or what love is or what hate is, if it's a dysfunctional dynamic in the household, we're going, well, if that's what that is, I don't want it, or that's how you treat women, or that's how you let men treat you. And this is why we've all grown up with mummy and daddy issues. Again, not their fault. They're also programmed exactly the same way. But it's when we go in and we do that inner work and we understand what those deep-seated beliefs are and the conditions are that we've lived our lives by, we can start to unravel them. But we can't just access them through our conscious mind. We have to go deep. And that can be through, hypnotherapy. It can be through doing work with a psychotherapist or a coach or a counselor. There's multiple different ways to go in and access them. Plant medicine's amazing for this. You and I are both, very closely aligned with plant medicine, which can really, really support bringing up all of the shadow stuff that's tucked away in there. But it is a journey, and a commitment to go deep into self and really understand the parts that were wired a certain way, because once you know it, you can't unknow it. You're given the ability to go, okay, well, this isn't actually what I want to live my life by. This isn't what I want to believe. I'm going to go ahead and change this. I'm going to take the steps in order to create change. But you cannot create change without knowing what it is that's tucked away so deeply in there, that's presenting as the behaviors and the experiences that you're having in life.
And this is not to re-traumatize people, because I know people have this thing about, we go back in the past, are you going to re-traumatize me? And it's like, no, if you get a very, very, very effective, let's say guide, mentor, coach, they can take you to a place where you can understand the stories the programs, like without having to relive that trauma. And that's a beautiful space to be in, because you get to have the awareness, the understanding, and you get to see it, but you don't have to relive, what's necessarily happened at the stage. That's why I think some people sort of have a block to go there, is because they think going back there sometimes, I'm going back and relive that. It's like, well, no, you're not necessarily, because out of this is that once you identify what those programs or those blocks are, what I tend to use, ask my clients, well, if that's what you think and that's what your identity is, how do you have to act, think, and behave and feel from that space?
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of think, oh, shit. Like, fuck you, Greg. It's like, yeah.
How dare
It's
you
like
call me out?
accountability. How dare you call me out my own behavior? And it's like, well, if in that space, but on the end of that, you kind of think, well, what's the difference between that and that world? The world you want and the world you don't want. It's purely just a thought.
Yeah.
It's as simple as it is. It's purely because, and part of the reason why you and I are doing this is because we want to make things simple for people, because there's so much confusion out there. People take these convoluted processes of 18-week courses and stuff like that. The premise of actually shifting and changing is quite fundamental. It's the nature of thought itself. And once you kind of grasp that and realize that that's in your power and you take control of that, life starts to open up. But we tend to be in this place where we live these lives of victimization. That something's happened to me, someone's done something to me, which then means I get to act a certain way to try and get the love and acceptance that I, want to get, but there's never really get there. So that's when we talk about conscious relationships. Conscious relationships are about accountability, about how you show up in the relationship. It's not about what you get from somebody. It's not that it's this quid pro quo kind of thing about, if I do this, I want this back. It's I'm showing up like this, and I'm going to show up in my best version, and I'm going to manage my thoughts and my expectations and how I control that. And I'm not going to judge the other person, because one of the biggest things I learned, and this was a bit of an aha moment when someone said it to me, is like, Greg, the relationship's not with the other person, don't you? It's not what you're talking about. This is like in my early 20s when someone said this to me. It's like, the relationship you've got with the other person's only ever in your head. You'll never, ever know the other person. The only version of the other person that you do know is the version that you have in your head. That person that you think you know, you don't, because their version is their version. And it's like, oh, crap. So if my reality and my relationship with my partner is in my mind.
Yeah, mic drop.
And it's like, oh, okay, my head hurts now. Right, now I can't blame him for anything. And as soon as you change the perception of that view of that person, your emotions change. Everything changes. This is the thing. I think Wayne Dyer said this. I can't remember. I'm just saying it. Like, you're one thought away from a different life.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Yeah. Simply that.
But the conscious relationships are here to help you go through the shadow. They're here to help you go through your shit. They're here to help you go through all your limitations, because the darkness is the way, like we said the other week, is like, people kind of get afraid of just to go, these love and lighters, the spiritual bypassing thing, it's all pixies and fairies and moon dust, right? There's so much power in the darkness. There's so much power in the shadow. There's so much power in embracing those negative thoughts. Like, if you've got a thought about that you're unworthy, dance with it. Like, really tackle it. Like, use the power of that limitation to transform your life. And this is the thing about conscious relationships. It's the conscious relationship with yourself that you have, then that emanates with everybody else. And like you mentioned plant medicine there before, like when you get to a place of where you kind of been you've got so much love and so much acceptance for yourself, you can go, hey, Jen, I've got so much of this shit here. Take it. It's unlimited. I've got so much love and self-awareness and self-acceptance and all that kind of stuff. You can take it all and it still won't be enough. And that's what people sort of starting to realize, is that accountability in this conscious place is a powerful place to be, but it takes courage.
Huge
It
courage.
takes
Yeah.
a huge amount of courage to go down that path because you no longer are a victim. You can't play that card. You can't play this card anymore and say, someone's done something to me. I get to behave this way. Or you're not loving me enough. Or you're not doing this and you're not doing that. I remember I've done I'm a Gottman accredited relationship coach. And one of the things they start off with, as soon as you say the word you're shot. Like you know when you don't do this and when you don't do that and you can as soon as they start saying the word you, it's like, oh, here we go. And the other person just gets defensive. The other person just stops and they don't hear anything, right? So yeah, the place of being in a conscious relationship, if you're not conscious with yourself, you've got zero chance of being in it with somebody else.
And I think because, relationships are a co-creation, your partner also has to be willing to be on the journey to some degree as well. Maybe not to the same level, to the same depth, but to have a conscious
Yeah.
relationships, it's going to take the two people working with the one entity that is the relationship. Because if one person is doing all of the work, holding all the accountability, and the other person is getting a free ride going, well, I'm not taking any responsibility because they're the one taking responsibility for everything, there's going to be
Yeah.
like disharmony within that space.
It's friction.
Mm.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And you made a really good point there. It's not about you both going at the same speed and doing the same thing. It's just like you have your own journey in that space. But if one's going down the self-awareness path, the other person's not, well, that does create friction in a way because you'll start to open up in a way that you'll see them and they won't necessarily shift with you. And that's
Mm.
sometimes where people also don't do the work is they stop is because, well, if I do the work, I'm afraid that things may change, which they will.
Mhm.
Or, maybe I might lose this person or I'm so dependent on this person and there's so many different things as to why people don't sort of take that path down the place of, oh, I need to, become self-aware, need to be able to have that conscious relationship. But when we talk about conscious relationship, it's seeing it from every different angle.
Mm.
It's being able to see it from a place where you're sort of witnessing it and you're witnessing your own thoughts and you're witnessing how you're interacting and you're witnessing how people interact with your life. You're witnessing how you react to what people say. You're witnessing how you react to your own thoughts, what they do and all that space. And that, can be, how do I say this? It can be quite anal sometimes. I've got a client who I said to her, you need to have some bogan friends because if you're all spiritual all the time and all conscious relationships, seriously, I punch you in the head, right? Because you get too serious about this. Because there's people who are always trying to do self-awareness part. Sometimes it's overwhelming. It's almost like, can you please stop trying to improve yourself?
Mhm.
I just want to sit on the couch and eat ice cream tonight and watch stupid TV, right? So consciousness is also about understanding when you go too far, down that place of
Having balance.
self-awareness and trying
Yeah.
to fix things. Yeah, because you have the balance, don't you?
It's so true because, and I found this in my own personal development journey over the years. I can go down rabbit holes and get really, really into something, really into learning about things and almost becoming a little bit obsessive about it. And then I kind of got to pull myself back and go, and I'm still human and I get to fuck up along the
Yeah.
way and I don't have to have all of the knowledge all at once. And because
Oh,
especially being a Virgo, but I've really held a perfectionist trait for quite some time. And so perfectionism for me is wanting to gather all of the knowledge really quickly to know all of the things, and then realizing, hang on a second, that in itself is a shadow. Like the shadow is the dark parts of ourselves that, is in the subconscious that we don't necessarily want to explore, but we get to when we decide to. And so I had to go in and be like, okay, well, where perhaps as a child did I have to feel I had to show up as, the perfect child or perform in a perfect way for validation? Okay, cool. Found it. All right. I'm just going to go out and be human now.
yeah, and it's you need the balance, like you said, because if you're nobody likes the and you and I can talk about this because the spiritual industry don't really talk to us anyway, so we don't care. There's so many spiritual wankers out there who are uber spiritual and look at me and I've done 50,000 ayahuasca kind of things. I'm now enlightened and all that kind of stuff. And you got to be grounded. You got to have the duality of stuff. You've got to have the shit. You've got to have the crappy days. You've got to have the self-doubt. You've got to have the place where you think, I'm just not coping. You've got to have that. And that's the conscious relationship where you can sit in the shit and hold the space for yourself and not fix it. Just to be able to, I can have the human experience.
Yeah, it's so important. I see it so often where it's, the deeply spiritual, airy fairy, like really stuck in the stuff. And at the end of the day, and I'll say this over and over again, spirituality is whatever you decide it to be. It's your connection to self, connection to source, or something greater than you, or an inner awareness. Whatever you want it to be, you get to decide. That's your birthright. And the more you sort of sit in it and ruminate in it and try to find reasoning and answers, you can get so lost in it. And there's actually life to be lived outside of that as well.
Yeah. I remember I read a good book. I can't remember what it's by a WA guy. It's called What Happened. It's actually a really, really good book. Rather than what's wrong with you, he asks a question which is what happened to you. And that opens up the doorway, because most people go to see somebody and say, "Oh, this is what's wrong with me," and it's like, and I thought that's a really good sort of lead into how people go, "Well, okay, Greg, and let's see what, if you and Jen were actually coaching us, what's one of the first things that you would actually do with us, right?" And so, usually we would just go, "Okay, well, what's happened to you? Where are you right now? What are your blocks? Where are things not working? Where do you want to get to? But what happened to you?"
Mm.
And this is where you can go back and not actually have the re-traumatization. You can say, okay, right, well, when I was 7, my dad left, and I'm making this up. My dad left and we didn't see him for 5 years. He went and stayed with his new family. Okay, well, how'd that make you feel? Alone, worthless, unlovable, rejected, abandoned. Okay, right. Then what happened? Right. And then you continue on the story. So what Jen and I are doing, we're listening at the same time, and we're kind of going, okay, we're listening for the words between words.
Mm-hmm.
We're not trying to fix you. We're not trying to come over the top of you and speak over the top of you. We're not trying to do this, and we're not looking for a process. We're listening at your level, and we're trying to get your world. We're trying to get the way you perceive things. We're trying to get the way that you see things, because the way that you're seeing things is actually an illusion. It's not necessarily true. It's a thought pattern. It's words in your head. And so we're getting a map, and we're getting this map of who you are by the limitations of what you're saying. And then we kind of just go, right, if that's what you think, and this is not just a belief, and you mentioned the word belief before, Jen, and you and I know it goes well beyond a belief. It becomes an identity, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Shapes our whole perception of everything.
And when it becomes our identity, it becomes who we are. And we live from that place. And no matter how many vision boards you do, no matter how many affirmations you do, no matter how many tarot readings you have to try and solve the problem, unless you address the story in your head and the version of events, and we're not changing, and this is the power of it, the past can change. I'll jump around sometimes. You can change a past event just by the story that you give it.
Oh, well.
And I'll give you an example. Like, when I was young, my dad didn't have much when he was growing up. My dad's dad was come back from the war. As most, it's a pretty horrific experience going through World War II, caused some issues. My dad grew up with not much money and stuff like that. So he made his whole world about giving us something he never had. So he gave us, financial security, worked his ass off, worked 2 jobs. Mum worked 2 jobs. Great. But then there wasn't that really deep connection there. And then I made up the story about, unlovable, dad didn't, all that kind of stuff. The moment I changed the story to see it from his point of view and the reason why he did what he did, my whole reality changed in an instant by just having that realization. And my relationship with my dad changed in that moment purely from the change of a different thought pattern.
Yeah. I've had such a similar experience with my dad as well. And it was highlighted to me in an Aya journey that the way I received love from my dad was quite untraditional. It wasn't, he wasn't much of a hugger or, physical touch or words of affirmation. He was very much about acts of service. There's no denying that my father loved us, us kids unconditionally with all that he had. It was in a very different
Mm.
way to how I guess I wanted to receive it. And so when that was highlighted to me in a ceremony and I was like, purging my guts up when I had this like realization and just moving through the trauma that I thought that I had been experiencing this whole time, that I'm unlovable to
Yeah.
men. It literally saw this unraveling happening of me with the masculine and the men that were in my life. And I started doing an assessment of the partnership I was in at the time. And I was like, huh, that makes sense. Other men, that had been in
Yeah.
my life, huh, that makes sense. And it's really interesting because, you're talking about how this becomes our identity, remembering as well that our psyche loves what is familiar. And what happens is what we tend to do is if we have a belief, if we have a conditioning around something, all we want to do is maintain that belief because we just love being right. We find safety in being right. And so we're constantly sabotaging ourselves and our experiences to keep having the same thing happen over and over again. And we end up going around in circles. This is how people end up staying in the same types of relationships, even though they're jumping from partner to partner, because they're sabotaging, because it's what they're trying to prove to themselves is right about themselves. And we need like self-awareness, doing the inner work. That's your circuit breaker right there,
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I want you to explore on this more because if you think you're unlovable, what kind of man do you have to attract?
Someone that's going to show you that you're unlovable. Yeah, someone who's going to remind you of that
Yeah.
constantly. And you're sitting there going, see, I told you so. Because we love to be right. Even when we
Yeah.
want to be wrong, we love being right because it's how we create safety. Doing something over and over again and getting it right creates safety for ourselves.
And then you become the victim, and then you project on the other person that they're the problem,
Mm-hmm.
and it becomes this vicious cycle because then again, you in this dynamic, you kind of get in this loop where you start, well, they're the problem. It was like, no, but you've attracted. You knew he was not good, but you were so unlovable that you chose to be with someone who actually reflects that back to you. So, and
Mm-hmm.
this is where self awareness and the conscious relationship is very powerful, but quite confronting. Like it's one of the most. This is why very few people with Jen and I, because it is really, really confronting to do because it's not for everybody. Most people want to sit in the counselor's chair and talk about their problems to the nth degree and blame somebody else and give me a little breathing technique or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
But to do this on a full on spiritual level, it's not for the faint hearted. Like this is radical accountability. Like you
Yeah.
can't hide anywhere about, well, this is I get to blame this because when you come down and because what we get you to realize is why other people act the other way. Why are they responding to you or creating in your life what they are doing? It might be understand what your mum and dad went through, understand their lives. They had to act that way because their own limitations,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because your dad probably never got any love what was his love language? Same
Yeah.
thing there,
Yeah.
right? Coming from different generations, different places where they went through the Great Depression, World War One, all that kind of stuff, right? Where they had nothing.
Mm.
Right? And today we're sport with everything. Like everything's at the tap of our hands, right? So and I think for a lot of people that it takes a lot of not only accountability and awareness, but it takes effort and as well as courage to jump on this path.
Yeah, it's so true. And because what happens is when you start to transmute this on the other side of that, that's where we find the liberation. That's where we find the freedom. That's where we find the orgasms, because you're having like when you
Mhm.
get to this point with a partner, when you've got that, radical responsibility, when you've got that, you take emotional accountability when you're doing the work on yourself and your partner's on board, the openness that can come from that's when the body starts to open and the body gets on board. Remembering as well, like the mind is not just in the head, it's in every single cell in the body. And so when you start to
Mm.
shift that, you'll start to know, like I know so many people, I lost weight after my last relationship. I always say I lost 86 kilos, 86 kilos of ex-boyfriend and 6 kilos of myself, right? Because and like the weight just dropped off me because the emotional stuff that I was holding on to and carrying around disappeared very
Mm.
quickly because of what I was not saying within the relationship, what I was not doing, what I was hiding from myself, really, because I didn't want to look at it because I didn't
Yeah.
want to upset the other person. And that served nobody, you know?
Yeah. And we talk about the word, and it's a bit of a wanky word, conscious relationships, right? It's new agey. It's, but what if someone says to you, what is a conscious relationship? What does it look like?
It's when each individual in the relationship decides to do the work on themselves, be really mindful of who they are, bring forward an authentic version of themselves, and hold space for the other person to do so as well. And meeting the other person where they're at, because just because we're doing the work on ourselves to a certain level, we cannot hold our partners accountable to do the work for us or with us or to be on the same page because
Nope.
they've got their own stuff as well. And so, I even know this within the space of my own relationship. If my partner's going through something, it's not up to me to fix this. It's not up to me to decide, okay, cool, let's, sit down and do a session or something through this. Not at all. Like he works through his stuff. I work through my stuff. We support each other in that. We ask, what is it that I can do to support you while you're moving through this? But we don't hold each other accountable for our own stuff, really.
And you're not needy either. It's
Mm.
like, it's not like I don't need you, like we've talked about before. It's like, no, I don't need you. I'm not needy. I don't need you to fix anything, kind of stuff, right? Because you can still be vulnerable, you can still be transparent, you can still be a complete basket case, you can have a complete breakdown. But that's the place where you're in that conscious place, because a lot of the conscious relationships, I'd say the biggest attribute is listening and presence.
Mm. Yeah, just being able to hold space for the other person and not try to fix them because you're uncomfortable with how their feelings are making you feel. Because it can be really hard to
Mm,
see your partner going through the shit show. I always say, to my clients, like, I'm in the soup with you, I'm just not drinking it. Like I'm here with you,
yeah,
but I'm not taking it
yeah.
on board. And I think it's really important that we have that in the space of our relationships, that we're not taking on board each other's stuff, because I would never expect my
Mm.
partner to take on board all of the stuff that, if I was working through some big things, that's not his responsibility or his problem.
And it's good to share, but you're not giving it to them to fit. You're not going, here's all my stuff, and then dumping on them, and then
Yeah.
it's this, it's, oh, probably that. Conscious relationships are really based on energetics as well.
Mhm. Yes, hugely.
The flow of energy, the flow of frequency, the understanding of that part, because it is a massive, that's where the intuition comes in, right? Because conscious relationships are highly intuitive. And this is where I think men can make a massive gain in life that we've talked about before. Men who are intuitive, it is the new frontier of the new generation of men coming out there. Like, to have a man who is highly, highly intuitive, it's like having a unicorn.
An amazing lover, unicorn.
But, well, exactly. Tell me, like, 'cause obviously, we'll call your new partner Dave, all right? We're going to
No,
reference him as
no,
Dave.
that's my ex. No. Can we
Oh,
use
is
his
it?
name? His name is
Sorry.
Cass. We cannot call it that. His name is Cass.
Oh, Greg, you're an idiot.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Good for the ratings.
Uh, um, he's not Dave, he's Cass. What's it like being with a guy who's intuitive?
Oh, it's amazing because the connection that we have is so deep. It's so deep and very quickly that it built and it formed. And it's like we both met at a time in our lives where we're like, had we not done the work on ourselves to get ourselves to where we are individually, it would not have been a match. we would not have been on the
Yeah.
same frequency. And it's really funny, like the synchronicities that we talk about all the time that we've both individually gone through ourselves to get us to the point where we're at now, and then how we came about meeting. Like we laugh about it and it blows our mind just what had to happen for these things to evolve. And now it's just like,
Mm.
oh, okay, cool. You're the boy version, I'm the girl version. Like it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
we've just found our match. Do you know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
beautiful because to be able to communicate with someone that just gets it because they're in it as well, or knows how to hold space, or knows how to read me when I need to be read, and how I get to read him. Like the beautifulness of just having eye contact and just staring at each other. No words need to be exchanged when we're together, just looking at each other going, yeah, I get you. I feel you. I'm here
Mm.
for you. And it's unlike anything I have ever experienced before.
Mm. And if you like, last night on SBS on Insights, there was actually an hour episode on a group of all these groups of men on there about what men are lacking these days, and across the board, it was about communication. It was about being able to tap into this space of not emotional weakness, but vulnerability, emotional resilience, emotional connection, emotional intelligence. Like all these men were saying the same thing. I want to learn about it, but where do I go to? How do I learn about this stuff? And this is what I'm saying is that conscious relationships now have a very, very big part of the men stepping up well beyond the alpha male grunting, look at my biceps. Biceps are good, don't worry. Six pack. And the money, right? Because that used to be good 30 years ago, but not
That's good
anymore
10
because
years
it's this
ago.
dynamic change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't forget, they're good to look at, but the depth of character you want now, especially, bring up a family and stuff like they were saying before, is about if you're having a partner in both sides who are intuitive, emotionally aware, and consciously aware, the level of relationship you have, it's like nothing you can ever explain. You have to experience it. Like you think you've got a good relationship now. The places that Jen and I are talking about, that's a never frontier.
Mm.
That's a place very, very few people go to. That's like nirvana.
It is. Kath and I are both Tantra practitioners. So just to paint the picture, like we're
Oh.
both we're both we're both on that page. Like we both work with plant medicine. We're both in the space of coaching. We both studied NLP. Like when I say that we're the same person, Greg, we are the same person. And we're both in that tantric space, so we understand the concepts and the principles, and we're both so lit up by them, and we're both so passionate about this. So it makes like we were instantly like an energetic match, because it's like, oh my God, finally someone that speaks my language and gets it. And you don't have to become a tantra practitioner just to find love or to have great sex or to have communication. It's finding, like, it's discovering who you are and then meeting people at that frequency as well.
Well, I mean, it's funny because like I've got clients, and some of the things I was saying was like, and this is weird because you and I, when we coach people, there is no place we won't go to. And one of the places that always gets people a bit defensive is when we talk about, right, so how's your sex life? They all get a bit, yeah, it's no good, whatever. And then I'll go, well, what do you like? I don't know. Well, there's the first part. It's like, if you don't know what you like, let's start to explore it. And many people just, kind of, I don't know why they don't want to go there, or it's embarrassing, or it's something to do about society, or they're, whatever reason, is that there seems to be this block where people kind of are embarrassed to sit there and talk about their perceived inadequacies in the bedroom kind of space.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And this again, it comes back to know thyself, know what you like, know what you desire, be able to communicate it. And, when you start to unravel it, have a look. What does sex even mean to you? What does sex mean to your partner? What have you always like? How did you start having sex and what did you make it mean in the early days? Because the honeymoon period is very different from when you get 5, 10, 20 years down the track as well. People wonder why their sex life
Yeah,
drops off and they're outside of that honeymoon period. It's because everyone wants sex in those first months, years, whatever it is. And then things happen. People there's disconnection within that relationship and things start to drop off. People don't openly communicate what it is that they desire or that they're willing to play or carve out time to work on the relationship, or there becomes a chink in it. There's something happens and
mm,
trust could be broken, or you get tired, you get exhausted, you have a fight, you make it mean certain things, and the first thing to go is your sex life, you know?
yeah, and especially with, I suppose, I don't know what the stats are. 2 out of 5 females, 3 out of 5 females have had some kind of traumatic sexual experience.
Mm.
To jump into a place with a conscious partner, oh my god, the healing that happens in that space if you've suffered, physical and emotional sexual trauma can be liberating
Yeah.
ridiculously well.
Yeah, and this is something that even my partner Cass noticed when he was doing his tantra facilitation, working with women and understanding women's perspectives on the amount of trauma that they've been through, or abuse, or hurt that so many women have. And he knows that by stepping into this space, it's almost like he has a duty of care as a man to make sure women are feeling supported in his presence. It said it, like he has said so many times, it is highlighted to him how much he now needs to teach other men about this, and the work that he's continuing to do with women in this space to help them rewrite their stories as well. Because, and especially stepping into, the tantra space, like there's a dark side to every industry, and men, especially male practitioners in this space, have to be
Oh
so
god.
fucking careful. Because like if a woman is coming into this space, and it's the same as in medicine ceremonies, it happens too, it's the most
Hmm.
vulnerable space. And if a wounded woman is already coming into this space, a hell of a lot of damage can be done. And so there's a
Yeah.
responsibility for men to understand, especially within their partner, to sit down, talk to them and understand them, because a lot of men don't even have awareness of what it's like to be a female, to feel unsafe. In fact, Cass and I went out for dinner the other night and we were talking about this, and there was a group of guys that were in a park sort of about 100 meters behind us. And I said, if we were to individually walk through this park by ourselves, I said, you would have a very different experience to what I would. I would be, I would have
Yeah.
to be mindful. I would send my best friend my location on maps. I would check my handbag to see if I had a weapon, and I'd have to be watching over my shoulder, and I'd have to feel the glares towards me. I said, you would just walk through this
Mm,
park and maybe say hi to them.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very different experience. A lot of men don't understand what women have gone through and continue to go through in this world. And it's when women are really seen and understood and are given the space to be able to talk about this. And like you said, heal through this as well, because healing can be done. We're not all walking around wounded just because we've had sexual abuse or trauma. There's a lot of people, I don't want to discredit that, but there is a lot of healing that can be done in that space as well.
Yeah, because you get that connection with one person, and then you kind of just, oh my god, everything that happened before me just can just melt away
Yeah.
in that moment of vulnerability for yourself, a moment of connection for yourself, a moment of sheer bliss for yourself, and you kind of just get this, uh, this pop, as I like to call it, is that things automatically just shift in a moment in time without you even trying to. And it's the thing. Where even though we do talk about tantra and certain things, where Jen and I really trying to take you guys is to a place where you are already it.
Mm.
There is no tool, there is no process, there is no system, there is no 7 steps to, there is no 3 steps to. There's just awareness.
Mm.
And the way that I sort of say people, it's like everyone sort of knows what a lamp is. The lamp's got the light in the middle, and that's the light that's always going to be there. what we're really doing is taking off the lampshade
Mm.
to reveal the true self.
Yeah, or showing you where
And
the
that
lamppost and the
lampshade,
on button is.
and it's because everyone, and I get this with every single client I have. It's like, well, Greg, what do I do? What are the steps? It's like, oh, no, there's no steps to this.
Mhm.
It's just pure presence. It's that
Mhm.
realization of who you truly are. You know,
Mm.
we're helping you shift from this place of identification with thoughts, with a construct, with my job, my clothes, my career, my house, and all that kind of stuff. To you are an infinite soul that can't be hurt. You're an infinite soul that cannot die. You're an infinite soul that is pure abundance, love, compassion, power, freedom, peace. You are already that. You've just forgotten.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we're giving you a doorway and a key, and all you got to do is step through that. And it's a choice. But it
Mhm.
takes the most courageous thing you'll ever do. It is a red pill, blue pill moment.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's not for the faint-hearted, and it is. You know what I mean? Like, it's actually for all. And,
Oh,
courage, the courage that you get to dig deep to find through all of that. When you realize that you've got courage to do this, you'll realize you can do anything because, once you've stepped into this, everything else just becomes easy.
yeah. Well, it is because most people are blocked because of fear. Like
Yeah.
that's the number one human block is
Yes.
fear.
Yeah.
And if you step beyond that fear and step into, well, I'm going to have fear at some stage throughout my life, I might as well just keep going anyway. It unlocks something within you. If you can live a life without fear, you're in a different world.
Mm.
It's not you don't have fear or you're not scared before. You still have that stuff come up, but you're not driven from all your decisions are made based on purely trying to avoid fear or
Exactly.
I'm scared of something.
This is why I take some of my clients skydiving, is because I know that they have fear there. I'm like, great,
Yeah,
I'm gonna put you out of the plane and let you know that you can survive this. That we're gonna
yeah.
go through the process of understanding what the fear is trying to tell you, how it's showing up in your body, how you move past it, and the version of you that is waiting on the ground from after you jump out of the plane and you realize that it was actually the most incredible experience of your life. That version of you is going to walk through life going, I did the scariest thing, I can do anything. I'll tell you a story. Do you want to learn how I learned how to speak to camera? I was with years and years and years ago. I was with a very trusted friend at the time, and he'd been on stage, for years. And he said to me, he's like, get naked. I'm going to put a camera on you. I'm going to give you 30 seconds on a topic to think about what you're going to say, and then you're going to speak to camera. So I did it. And it was obviously very daunting. However, speaking to camera is easy now when I've got my clothes on because I've done the thing that was most
It's easier.
fearful beyond that. Anything before that now is like, oh, cool, I can do that, because I faced the hardest part of that. And it's like, oh, everything else is
Yeah.
easy now. And so it's constantly, stepping out of our comfort zone in so many ways. Like every week I write down and teach my clients this. What big, bold move are we going to make this week? What is scaring us the most? Is it a conversation that needs to be had with someone? Is it, emailing someone to be like, hey, put me on the cover of this magazine? Is it, asking the client for, the contract or whatever the thing is? Just do the fucking thing. Do the thing that scares you,
Mm.
because what's going to happen? What, they're going to say no? What, you're going to get rejected? Oh, okay, cool. Something goes a different way to what you thought. Or really fucking cool shit happens and you end up with a cool story at the end of it.
Yeah, and it does go back to what you said at the start. Like your ego wants to be right about itself, wants to be right about limitations.
Yeah.
It's that thing, and then you get the point of why people don't jump into this conscious place is this. What again? It's this limitation. What happens if it doesn't work out? What happens if I fail? What happens if I put it all on the line and I get rejected? But that's not a conscious relationship. That's still based in limitation. That's
Yeah.
still based in fear. That's not conscious at all.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. One of my favorite quotes that I say to myself all the time is, it goes, what if I fall? But darling, what if you fly? Like there's
Mm.
there's that limitation of like, okay, well, if I jump over the edge, what if I fall down? Okay, but what if I catch myself with my wings on the way through?
And,
And we get to
and this is the thing. Like we're go.
Oh, I was going to say, we get to have the experience either way. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if we fall. It actually doesn't matter if we fly either. It's that we did the thing, that we jumped off the edge, that we realized that we had the courage to pursue the uncomfortable thing.
And it's like this thing like we're doing. Like, we don't care if there's no one listening to this. Don't give a shit. Right?
Cass listens.
We know it's not.
Yeah, we know. We get a lot of feedback about this.
Right? But if we sat there and went through all the permutations of what could have gone wrong and what we could look like, and especially talking about controversial topics that most people don't talk about, if we went and based on making our decisions based on what someone else would think of us, then we never get anything started.
Exactly. Yeah, we wouldn't have the DMs that are coming through going, thank you for saying what you're saying, like, keep up the good work. We wouldn't have those unless we decided to go where we go.
Yeah. So conscious relationships, they're not, it takes, it's really, I don't know, I'm trying to be wanky about the word, like be uber spiritual and, another label, that kind of word, but I can't get around it. Like, they are a different paradigm. They are a place where every one of your dreams, wishes, hopes and desires live. But it doesn't come from it comes from looking at the whole part. Like you said before, it's looking at everything that is a part of you, and that part is to accept the part of you don't like. It's to love the part of you rejected. It's to love the part of you that you hate the most. It's the part of you that you're so insecure about. It's that is a conscious relationship, because those parts of you make you. Because people are great showing their version of events on Instagram about how good their fucking life is. But they're not telling you about the fact that they've got no money left because they've been living this lifestyle trying to prove to everybody else that they're successful, right? It's that it's to be in that place where you accept your shame, you accept your guilt, you accept, and you go into that place, and that's when it starts to alchemize in that world of the beauty from that, and then you can use that as a place of real consciousness. Because I think people have this thing about consciousness and enlightenment is just positive. But, if you get too close to the light, you can't see anything. If you get too close to the dark, you can't see anything either.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Right? Somewhere smack bang in the middle, you get to see the light and the dark, which is the perfect place to be. And conscious relationships are about that. And, I love it, Jen. Like, you're so spot on about the subconscious mind and seeing the aspects of you that, that are hidden. That's the part that you have to go down. That's the part you have to sort of journey into to find that aspect.
Yeah. It's incredible stuff to do. Yeah.
It is. So if someone was going, okay, I want to start down this path, I want to become more conscious, what's something they can look at today or tonight that they can start on that path without having someone like me and you? And again, understand, everybody, the reason why Jen and I have got to where we've got to, and I'm still a basket case, I'm still a major fuck up, right? Absolutely. But we didn't do it alone. Okay, so there's only so far you can get by doing it by yourself. But if someone wants to at home, start off the process of get somewhere of, okay, how do I become more conscious and have a more conscious relationship? What can they do without having to, employ someone like us?
I think the first step is, what I would invite listeners to do actually is make a list of all of the things that you feel shame about within yourself and write it a love letter.
Lovely.
Like, really just get in touch with all of the shameful parts, because shame is fucking uncomfortable. Like, it's like, let's go to the uncomfortable, the shadow, and let's just bring it forward. And like, how can you just love on those really shamed parts of yourself that you've put all these conditions on, or that you've decided that is unworthy, unlovable? Let's just bring that to the surface. Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. Because that invites that aspect of you to actually have that self-acceptance and self-love, which will
Mm.
be quite confronting for people. Like, self-love is one of the most confronting thing people can do. Like, everyone can love everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And we say, hey, Jen, how about a bit of self-love? Oh, fuck off, Greg. I haven't got time for that shit. I'll go and try and help somebody else. I'll go and be a martyr somewhere else. I'll go and, do some, charity work somewhere else. So I don't want to look inside the hood, because if I look inside that hood,
Yeah.
that's a pretty bad engine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And noticing like where you're filling up your life with the busyness or trying to fill the void of the things that you don't want to look at within yourself, and it could be in the space of your relationship. Like, this might be something that if there's a person in a partnership or in a couple here, do this together, like do it individually together and then compare notes. Like, make a shame
Yeah.
list and sit in a shame circle together and just go through what it is that you're deeply, deeply ashamed of, like with just absolute authenticity and vulnerability.
Another good question is, how am I making the other person wrong?
Oh, yeah.
Like, how am I making my partner wrong?
I like that one.
Like, oh, crap. Oh, no,
Yeah.
shit, Greg.
Oh. Oh.
How long is this list, Greggy? Because we have to understand, like, it once we understand the nature of reality, the nature of thought, the nature of perception, and like I said before, it's about, well, how do we have to behave, act, think, and feel based on what we think? We start to realize that our husband going, leaving in the morning without giving us a kiss goodbye does not mean he's leaving us. It just means that he's so comfortable in the relationship, he doesn't have to give you a kiss goodbye. It's perception is everything. And that's where you get into those conscious relationships, is understanding the two things. It's how you perceive things and actual perception.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that in a relationship is so powerful and so huge, because then you got to realize, well, my husband really wasn't thinking that. He wasn't thinking of leaving me. I just thought that because I'm so insecure about myself. He actually went to work because he was happy. He didn't have to kiss me goodbye because he's secure, right?
Mm.
But we made up the story that he's
Yeah.
leaving us or having an affair with a secretary because I'm so insecure, because I've got issues about myself. And then I thought that, and all of a sudden it's a train wreck from there.
Exactly. Exactly. Or have the conversation. I feel uncomfortable when you don't kiss me goodbye in the morning. Can we make sure we kiss goodbye in the morning? Like, if it's a problem for you, bring the
Yeah,
conversation up. Like, just like, hey, can we talk about this?
yeah,
Instead of making a
yeah.
big song and a dance and like thinking the absolute worst. Like, catastrophizing is such a big thing when we're in that
Mm.
unconscious relationship part, because we're all about the stories, the perceptions that are ruminating based on our fears and our traumas and that all of that conditioning we spoke about.
Hey, can we do a favor? Next episode in 2 weeks' time, can we do a full tantric episode?
Sure.
Because I've got two people say, Greg, I don't know what tantra is. I've seen it. Is it sort of has it worked? They all kind of think it's this weird mystical woo-woo shit, right? And it's like, it's the mystique about it, but the unknowing about what it's really about
There's a lot of
is, people have
misconceptions of
heard the word,
tantra.
but they don't understand it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yep. No, we
yeah.
can definitely dive into that. One of my favorite things to talk about.
Especially from like we talked before about guys stepping up, right? And this is part of what we're sharing here, is we're asking men and women to step up in this new version of humanity, right? And guys who can tap into and look at Cass, right? Look how powerful he is as a man stepping into that space, right? Now
Mm-hmm.
he will run rings around the alpha male,
Oh
like
yeah.
literally run rings around him.
Mm-hmm.
And he may be emotionally intelligent, he may be vulnerable, he's not weak. He's a very,
No.
very powerful man.
Oh, literally
And he
the
doesn't have to, yeah,
strongest man I've met because he's in this space. Yeah.
yeah. So if you're a guy, if you're a woman with a man, next episode is going to be very, 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 very good. If you're a dude, it's going to be even better. You'll listen to some. This is going to be some. If you want to have the best sex of your life ever, the next episode is one you want to drop into, because Jen's going to go full tantric on you. We might even get
penetrate.
Cass on. How about that?
I'm sure he would love that, actually. I'm sure he would absolutely love that. Who knows? We might have a very special guest next time.
Well, that's the thing, we want to liberate people. We want to be able to, like, it's not as hard as people think. It just takes a choice to be able to go, I want to go and experience this. And you're
Yeah.
going to fuck it up.
Yeah.
Of course you are. That's the
Yeah.
fun part.
That is the fun part. Absolutely. Yes. No, it's yeah, relationships, they're the best, aren't they? We learn so much about ourselves through them. And even if you're not in a partnership, even if you're not in a relationship, doing this work on yourself is so powerful because you're going to become this energetic frequency to draw in other people that are on the same page as well. It's exactly how, Cass and I connected, because we're just on this absolutely same frequency. We're like, oh, I see you, I get you, I value you, I understand you,
I ask a really stupid question. Can you do
Sure.
Tantra on yourself?
So Tantra is
So
not
that's
a
another thing as
physical
well.
practice.
Yeah.
So it's not a physical. The first principle of Tantra is know thyself. The word Tantra means to weave. And so the principles of Tantra is actually all about self. It's know thyself. So it's actually everything that we talk
Yeah.
about here. A lot of people assume that Tantra is the Kama Sutra or kinky sex or bondage or whatever. There's a lot of, and we'll go through that in the next episode about some of the misconceptions of what Tantra is, and start to break it down, because there's a lot of misconceptions around it. So, there's a lot of, self-love practices in there. There's a lot in the partnership and in the, the romantic connection dynamics, but it's all about doing the work on self as well.
Cool. Jen, as always, what are we going to leave our listeners with? One final thought.
Oh, one final thought. Enjoy the fucking process. Like, don't take it so seriously as well. Like, just get out there, have some fun, go easy on yourself. Like, just really acknowledge the journey that you're on, and just give yourself a break every so often as well. Like, don't get so deeply caught in it that you can't see your way out of this shit as well.
Yeah. Look, I love talking to you because I get so much out of this just talking about it.
So do I. It's great.
Not many people talk about it, right? And then people and then people just get it like you do, right? So I think look, it's confronting for people. Like it's okay for us to sit here and talk about it and be on the other side of it per se. We're not really on the other side of it, but we're still going through it. But sort of done the journey. The moment I sort of went down this path, it was the most scariest moment of my life, because I knew my old life was over, and it's the fear of the unknown. And that's when you actually embrace that, you realize that there is no unknown. It's just that you're coming into the known, that you were actually in the unknown before. But that was the blue pill, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Just to have some courage and be gentle with yourself, because people like Jen and I, we're here to help you. We're here to help you, go through, some of the stuff that we've been through and help you. And we'll share our journeys as we have. Part of the podcast is to share our own journeys and our stories through this.
Yeah.
We've fucked it up. We've made mistakes.
We're not exempt from going through the shit show that is this cosmic joke called life. Like, we're still presented with things every single day that we get to work through. It's just that we have tools in our tool belt, and we continue to learn, grow, and evolve, and we do the work on ourselves. Like, it doesn't mean that we don't have the stuff. There's always some stuff underneath there.
But that's the doorway. That's the journey into the next evolution. That's the place where, after you do it a few times, you get used to jumping through the doorway and doing it. It's just that if you're on the edge of just they're like, what have you got to lose?
Yeah.
Because in reality, you don't have, if you're in a place where it's not working right now, you don't have anything to lose.
Exactly that.
You have everything to gain.
Exactly that.
And, so, we see you and we hear you, and, we believe in you. Just take the step.
Yeah.
It's one giant step for man, or one small step for mankind, or whatever that saying was, the space one.
Yeah, you're so roomy.
All right, Jen, thank you for tonight.
Been
Conscious
amazing as always.
relationships.
Mm.
An hour's gone very quickly again. I can keep talking. But I will see you in 2 weeks' time where
Yep.
we will talk about Tantra. If anyone's ever got some questions, hit us up. If anyone wants some help, hit us up. If you've got any kinds of topics you want us to cover, hit us up.
Mhm.
If you want to know Tantra, don't come to me. Go to Jen. Right? Go to the expert.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, we're open to that stuff. So whack it on our socials, whack it on Instagram, give us feedback, comments, all that kind of stuff, because we will get back to you. We love the comments, we love the feedback, and we want to hear what you guys are actually, what problems you're going through that we can actually discuss, right? Because
Mhm.
we don't know the answer, we'll find it out for you. If we sort of know where to go, we'll discuss it. There is no, and if you want to have some real honest conversations, we'll go there, won't we?
Oh, absolutely, we will. In fact, we love going there. We we signed up to going there deep deeper and deeper every time.
All right, Jen. I'm going back to dreary, cold, windy, useless Melbourne,
Going to
and
just
you
enjoy the
stay
heat of Brisbane.
shiny, bright up and busy.
See you next time.
All right, see ya.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. We hope you loved it, and the biggest compliment that you can give us is leaving a rating and review. If you would like to get in touch with us, please feel free to reach out via our Instagram page, Intuition and Orgasms Podcast. We will see you in the next episode.